Welcome to the channel. This is Roger Thunder. Let's talk about what's going on right now in the world. I have never heard the word Armageddon used so much in my entire life. If you did a survey of words that are on the internet, probably Armageddon and nuclear war would be the top two that would come up, the top two phrases. Wonderful. And how did this happen? Well, it's because everybody is, as an Al Jazeera documentary once stated, praying for Armageddon. They have turned the Jesus Christ of the Bible into a complete nut job warrior instead of who that person might have actually been. Now you go to the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and all that good stuff. And there's a lot of good sayings in there supposedly written by Jesus, all right? Let's get something straight here. Jesus Christ. Christ is not Jesus' last name, all right? It was Jesus the Christ, okay, or the Messiah, the Savior, or one who comes to save. Something of that nature is the exact definition of Messiah, Christ, okay? Or, it can also be associated with Christ consciousness, which I did a video. But Jesus the man, I did a video on that. I should probably finish my sentence there if you want to check it out. But Jesus the man was quite different than what is portrayed, okay? Now let's get back to the Gospels. The Gospels were written, and there's many good sayings about, there's many beautiful sayings in there, spiritual sayings, that are supposedly attributed to Jesus the Christ, or Jesus the man that walked on the earth that was crucified. Yes, there's some very good, very telling, very strong language in there, some very strong warnings, things of that nature. And them being of that nature are good, the warnings, the admonition, some of the eye-opening sermons. They're all good if they're taken in the way they should be taken, which means they're just good in themselves. It doesn't have to be associated with any kind of person. Most of the stuff that you see in the Gospels were said by the Christ-conscious Buddha, who came way before Christ. In fact, many think that Jesus, the Christ, got many of his sayings from the Buddha, all right? Enlightened sayings, shall we say. But here's the deal. The Gospels, people don't really even know who, authorities, supposed authorities, don't even know who really wrote the Gospels. They can only imagine, they can only deduce, they can only come up with, well, yeah, maybe Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and all these guys wrote this, let's say, witness to Christ, or witness to Christ's words. But that was 60 years after Christ split the scene, all right? And so it's like that old game telephone, where you tell one person one thing and that person tells the next person. And then by the time you get to the end of the line, whatever you told the person at the head of the line, whatever you told that person is something totally different when it comes out at the end of the line. So basically that's what you have here. In the fact that it was written 60 years later. Now let's look at the Gospels and the good things, or the things that I just mentioned. that Christ said the admonitions, take for example, ravenous wolves will come in sheep's clothing. Well, that's spot on, isn't it? We see that today. And how about men turning against each other, every man's hand against his brother? That may be in Genesis, I'm not sure. But that's basically was a foretelling prophecy of what would come in the period of time, supposedly, that we're living in. Now, when the Gospels were written, a huge influence on the Gospels may have been, and probably most likely was, Greek philosophy and Greek ideas and the Greeks' take on spirituality, let's put it that way, or thinking on a higher level. And a lot of those sayings could have been copied by whatever gospel writers, whoever really wrote the Gospels. They don't know. Oh, they say things like, well, yeah, we think this gospel was written by the same person that wrote Mark or whatever, but they don't really know. They don't have it dyed-in-the-wool proof of anything. Now, these so-called Christians of today, okay, or the Evangelical Nut Jobs, coupled with the Jewish hordes, and I've always been against organized religion, you know that. It's just a sham and a lie, and you can't put any real credence in the dogma of organized religion. Anytime a religion is formed around any kind of individual, it becomes immediately adulterated, and you don't know the true meaning of what was going down. Just like Buddha, Buddhism. No, we don't need an organized religion. We need to listen to the original concept and the original words. But evidently, Jesus is being made into some kind of guerrilla fighter now by these evangelical Christians or Christian Jews or Jews themselves. Although Jews don't really believe in Jesus, they don't believe that the Messiah has come, yet you got these evangelical nut jobs that are teaming up with the Jews and the Israelites and saying, or the Israeli nation, the state, somehow they got coupled together. Go figure that one out when Jews don't even believe in Jesus. But here they are, the evangelicals, spouting off about how they're so aligned with Israel and how they're standing up with the genocide, okay, that is happening in Gaza, and the other hijinks and irrational acts, okay, that are being perpetrated by the Jewish nation, the Zionists, whatever you want to call them. They somehow got teamed up. They somehow got hooked up together. They somehow are in the same bed together. And you got these evangelical pastors like Hagee. He's one of them. He's probably the main one that is perpetrating a lot of this stuff. There's others as well. Stationed at some church in Texas that is influencing hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands, probably thousands of people in this instigation type process where they're instigating people to actually get violent and saying that they need to get violent, basically. Some of them are armed, some of them aren't. Now here's the real damage, though. The real damage is that in the U.S. Congress, basically every congressman in U.S. Congress, the president included, vice president, all of them, claim themselves to be some kind of Christian or some kind of evangelical, or they are, in fact, evangelicals. Now, I just watched a recent documentary from Al Jazeera called Praying for Armageddon. Armageddon the hell out of here. How's that? Armageddon the hell out of here. It's insane how this thing is ramping up to be like almost like a, well, not almost, is a self-fulfilling prophecy by biblical and evangelical and Jewish nut jobs, okay, that take the scriptures literally instead of going to a high spiritual level, all right? Instead of looking at let's say the peaceful aspect of, let's say, Jesus' writings, all right? They're not looking at the peaceful side. They're not looking at anything that would bring peace to this earth, okay, and love and compassion. Matter of fact, it's causing a huge division. And of course, we know that this whole narrative, and I've talked about this before, this whole narrative with the Savior Son and all that good stuff is been almost like a parasite on humankind or mankind ever since they accepted biblical writings as being the word of God rather than just a bunch of scribes that were in captivity that wrote a bunch of scriptures that they stole from earlier teachings like the Sumerian culture and turned it completely on its head and formed their gods and their viewpoint of the world off of that. You know, you have in the history here of the Jews, in the Israelites, you have a history of a scorched earth policy. You have a history of barbarism and genocide and the whole thing. It's in the Bible. So naturally, you're going to take that Bible and you're going to use it to your advantage and you're going to use it to back up or justify what you are doing as a nation or as a people or as a Christian organization or a belief system or whatever you want to call it. Now, this belief system just permeates everywhere. It's everywhere. It's been everywhere. How do you think the Native Americans, the natives or the Indians or whatever you want to call them, the indigenous people of this land, how do you think that they got exterminated? How do you think they got put in reservations called, basically they could be called concentration camps, all right? And over 100 million of them exterminated on the arrival of the people on the Mayflower, the European man that called himself a Christian. No wonder then that we have all this stuff ramping up right now, with a fomentation of war and killing and outright violence against our fellow man, okay? Justification of genocide, justification of the killing of all the innocent men, women, and children in the Gaza zone, justification for everything. I mean, when you look at it, even in Ukraine, which is being used as a proxy to commit war against Russia, who is incidentally probably more of a Christian moral nation than what you have here because they're Orthodox. And they don't believe in all this baloney, okay, about Jesus having to be some kind of warrior and taking people out, all right? Now, was Jesus ever kind of a militant or warrior in real life? Well, he may have been associated he may have been associated with that type of group of people, the 12, who were known to be militant and known to be outspoken and known to be against the Roman emperor and the Rome and the Roman army. Those kind of sects existed, and usually they were born out of a hatred, for the oppression and tyranny that they were under. And a lot of times a Messiah, there were many Messiahs in the history of the Jews, or in that time period. There were many Messiahs that, guys that came up that claimed to be the Messiah. Jesus got somehow spotlighted, basically. And that whole story is too lengthy to go in here right now. But needless to say, it got extrapolated out and enhanced upon and propagated through the Roman Church, all right, and other churches, which the Roman Church is really the head of the snake. A lot of other religions, most other religions were offshoots of that, the Protestant Reformation, and, I could go on and on and on. But the point I'm trying to make here is that this has been messed up from the very beginning, all right? And so now we see this giant push using the word Armageddon, 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 which is a biblical term. Okay. Ravenous wolves in sheep's clothing. Lip service, but not really in the way that it's meant to be. The enemies, man, all kinds of enemies, okay? But what these people don't get was that the enemy of Jesus or Yeshua was a whole different enemy than what we have today, and has nothing to do with the nation of Israel against Gaza, and has nothing to do with the Ukraine war, and has nothing to do. The enemies of Yeshua or Jesus were organized religion and tyranny of the day, but mostly false teachings, organized religion, a portrayal of violence was what he was against, okay? He was a peacemaker. He wasn't somebody that was out there fighting in the streets tooth and nail with swords and sabers and knives. He was saying there's a better way than this. There's a peaceful way. You're missing the point, people. In fact, he was so high on his level of consciousness, coming from such a high spiritual level, that he knew that that's really where it was at, being enlightened, being a man that was in oneness with the creative power of the universe. But he never advocated war, okay? And so somehow that got all twisted around, probably in the book of Revelations and other books of the Bible. And it all got hooked up to somehow he was going to come back on a cloud or in the heavens with legions of angels and basically kick butt on everybody that was a bad boy, okay? The nations, Babylon the Great, Satan the devil, there's going to be this big, big war that's coming down the pike here. And never mind that on earth, as he walked the earth, he was his own sayings and his whole intent and his whole purpose was against war. You couldn't make this shit up. Couldn't make this shit up. I mean, Jesus is turning over in his grave. What are they doing? Jesus now, instead of having a staff and the sheep and being a shepherd, holds an AK-47 in his hand and is ready to bag them up, you know? Kick ass and take names. Let God sort them out, that type thing. You got to look at the discrepancies here in the hypocrisy here of this whole thing. And this is all an orchestration. It's all totally permeated. It has all this kind of thinking, has totally permeated the thinking of the evangelical and the Jew and organized religion in general, has totally permeated that. It's now like let's create as much chaos and as violence, and let's do as many harmful things to our fellow man, and let's kill as many of our fellow man as we can in wars, and all in the name of God. And these pathetic Congress people and presidents and just the general populace as a whole have brought us to the point of where we're, quote unquote, on the verge of Armageddon, or on the verge of the Great Tribulation, or we are in the Great Tribulation, or World War III is here, or the end times are here. Is this something that appeals to you? Because that's not what appeals to me. What appeals to me is getting your act together on a personal level, okay, on a Christ consciousness level. In other words, being enlightened, being a savior of yourself, being a person that can see truth as opposed to lies and propaganda and dogma and all the shit that we see swirling around us right now, and it's causing havoc. That, coupled with the complete unconsciousness of vaxxed people, okay, and just the shape of our civilization as a whole here, it's in bad shape. It's in pathetic shape. People can't communicate anymore. People can't be friends anymore. There's all kinds of divisions. People are running for the life rafts. Some people are returning to old dogmatic religious. They may have gotten to a point where they were starting to see the light about the lies. But then when fear comes up and paranoia comes up, they gravitate back to the old teachings that never served them, or basically an inculcation of some insidious thought process that made people victims instead of coming into their own power, made them slaves, made them victims, made them beholding to an outside God that doesn't even really exist. Am I an atheist? No. When I say God exists, it's a conception of God. Just like Jesus Christ is a metaphor, God is a metaphor. Everything is a metaphor. Truth be known, the original religions, which were called pagan, were closer to the truth as far as worshiping nature as a god, and the sun and the earth and the moon and the cosmos, and growing and planting and harvesting according to the phases of the moon and the earth, and being thankful for the bounty. That was the original religions or pagans. You know, the people that got around a campfire and danced and had fun and drank a little wine maybe and gave thanks for just celebrated, which is a form of giving thanks, just celebrated the fact that they have food on their table for another year because the harvest came in, right? Somehow from that, this foreign body got inserted into the thinking of an outside God and a Savior, and God being man, and man, you know, in the God being Jesus, and Jesus is God, which is also a complete fabrication, or let's say a misinterpretation or a misreading of what really high spirituality means, which means, of course, we're all God. We're all God. We're all in oneness with God. The only separation that exists is our own stupid egos and our own stupid egotistical way of thinking that we're separate somehow. Matter of fact, we're all one. And so when you got people in places like the Middle East and the different tribes and different nations turning on one another, they are completely oblivious to the high spiritual concept even the natives of this land had. All my relations, we're all one. What one does affects another. And if we are harmful to our brothers and sisters, well, then we're harming ourselves. You know, remember that old golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you? There's another saying. How can you look at sayings like that? How can you look at sayings like do unto others, okay, and not be covetous? And how can you look at sayings like thou shalt not commit murder? How can you look at sayings like, or, you know, not killing your fellow man? How can you look at sayings like they shall come as ravenous wolves in sheep's clothing? Yeah, that's happening now. And not get it. And not get that that has nothing to do with what's going on right now. If Jesus was, in fact, an enlightened person, which many say, he had a Christ consciousness. That's the connection here. As opposed to most of the people of his day, just like most of the people of this day, that had their heads where the sun don't shine. And couldn't recognize a true spiritual teaching, or couldn't even talk about where their belief systems come from or originated, or have no knowledge whatsoever. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is wisdom. Knowledge is something that I try to perpetrate on this channel. Have been for quite some time. But I'm telling you right now, it's insane. It's pure insanity. The world is insane. All you got to do to look and see if the world is insane is go on Twitter, which is one of the few accounts that I've kept, just so I can post videos and that, you know, get my books out there and that kind of thing. But if you go on Twitter and you go to the home feed and you scroll down on Twitter and you look at the stuff that's posted on there, is that an indication of where the mentality is of the nation and, let's say, of the masses as a whole? I mean, all you see on there is garbage. Politics over and do you believe this person should be in office, and do you believe that this person and give it a thumbs up if this you think this person's bad. And they got pictures of stumbling Biden and orange-haired Trump and Pelosi and the Congress, all these guys in suit and ties, just railing off a bunch of bullshit and doing a bunch of crazy things like funding wars and this and that. All just political garbage nonsense, sewage, waste of complete fucking time. Excuse my French. And then the other thing that you're going to see on Twitter is scores and scores of like these TikTok videos, or let's say just shorts, or just stuff that has come in all across the country here from different people. And here's another thing I noticed. Lots of violence. Because you go on there and you'll watch something like a TikTok video or something like that, and you'll see a brawl in a restaurant with people throwing shit at each other and being violent with each other, and then you'll see another group of people jumping up and down on a car and laughing, or you'll see another group of people raiding some kind of Apple store or even a convenience store and going in there and just taking over. And most of these people that I'm seeing are black, all right? Now, I don't have a racist bone in my body. But what does that tell you? If you every video that you see are a bunch of black people with their pants hanging way down below their ass, and most of them are out of shape, and most of them are violent, and what is going on here? Well, it's Black Lives Matter instigated all that stuff, okay? Because when I was a kid, I had no problem at all with racism or being part Native and hanging out with the boys in the hood and the ghetto and all that stuff. I never had a problem at all back in the day with blacks or Mexicans or anybody else. We were all hand-in-hand brothers in that time, in the 60s. Everybody was pretty united against who they thought was really causing the trouble in this country. Even back then, during the Vietnam War and the government, and it's always been the government. And it's always been religion, turning one person against another. But, you see some of these videos now, these TikTok videos, and they're almost, if you don't believe me, you go on Twitter yourself and scroll down and see all the animosity. I mean, a black kid going up and punching a white teacher in the face, and her just sitting there taking it. Another group of blacks in a restaurant throwing stuff at the white guy behind the counter and having a brawl amongst themselves. Another video is on the same order, destruction of I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And what makes people think for 1 minute that this shit should be put up with? I mean, I can remember when looters, any kind of looter in any kind of situation, in a storm, let's say, they were shot on sight. They were shot on sight. No questions about, it's obvious kind of like what you're doing if you're going into a store and looting and taking everything and thumbing your nose and maybe even sometimes harming the person in the store. You got to ask yourself, what the fuck has this world come to? Now, Again, I want to emphasize, I'm not just making this shit up as far as the majority of the videos that you're going to see people doing this. You go on there and you check it out for yourself and you tell me. This is what can happen when a group of people gets co-opted or taken over, like Black Lives Matter, which is a George Soros, another Jew, okay? Another bad person, let's put it that way, taking over a group of people and instigating them into a situation where they think that somehow they're better than everybody else and they've been treated bad all their life and that they're due to get anything they want anytime they want and commit violence anytime they want. What happened to the Native American in this mix? What happened to the millions of people that were killed that were natives, indigenous people of this land? Where's their reparation? Where are their rights? Oh, they're still living on reservations, excuse me, dying of alcoholism and lack of heat and all kinds of good shit, okay? This has gotten totally out of control, okay? And you can blame these people themselves, actually, for letting whoever, whatever powers to be, manipulate them. And this goes just exactly the same thing. You notice I don't have favorites here, okay? It's the evangelicals. It's the Christian religions. It's the Jewish horde. It's the blacks that have been turned against themselves and mankind. And we're whipping up into a high fever pitch of critical mass here across the planet. And not only that, but people can't think for themselves anymore. They're just stupid. Now I know why people don't tune into this channel sometimes, because you have to have some kind of a higher level of consciousness, or you have to have a higher frequency, or you at least have to be educated and done research like I have to even comprehend what I'm saying. Because most people out there are dumb. They're stupid. They have no sense whatsoever. They don't even have common sense. Hello? That's where we're at right now. Evangelical nut jobs, religious nut jobs, factions, which are just another form of religion, racism. And when you're watching these TikTok videos too, you also realize if I'm saying something about them or the people that are involved in this, look who they're going against most of the time. It's not just each other. It's mainly white people. And there really is no such thing as white people, but let's say we'll use that term. It's usually, going into a white-owned store, or maybe it could even be an Asian-owned store, or it could be... But so who's the racist here? Or are you just outright punks? Are you just outright violent punks that should be dealt with in a manner of harshness? Because you have every right. I'm not pro-violence here. You better get that straight. That they are the violent ones. But when you are confronted with something like that, you have every right to defend yourself with lethal force. If it's a defense of your family or a defense of your well-being, And so is that what this world has come to? You go in different cities like San Francisco, and what do you see? What do you see there? Or where, anywhere, LA, New York, complete degradation, complete, every man's hand against his brother, complete division, even in relationships, man. You got division going on. Divide and conquer. It's the old Hegelian dialectic, divide and conquer. And this world and the situation that it's in right now is predisposed to the divide and conquer mentality, or the divide and conquer effect, where people get split up just from the friggin' tension that's in the world. And there's so many diverse ideas and so much blame. It's the blame game, brother. It's the blame game. Let's blame everybody else for our problems. Let's blame other people, or even in relationships where, I'm not happy, so it's your fault. When happiness is, as taught by the highest ascended masters like supposedly Jesus and Buddha, that it's all within you. It's not out there. There's another saying that comes up: the kingdom of heaven is no part of this world. It's all within you. It's not. Things have to be changed within, brother. Okay? Not out there. They have to be changed inside, and then it will change out there. It's all about your projection into life. So I just had to do this video because got a lot of things to say. It's my purpose. I'm not in it for the money, obviously. But I am in it to get as much word out there from my perspective as I can, because I see clearly now. And you can't even have a conversation with the everyday man on the street anymore without him knowing, or I should say not knowing, what the fuck is going on around him. It's just they're entrenched in their everyday life, their everyday moronic belief systems, and they don't want to hear anything else. They don't want to know about what's really going on. They don't want to know the causes of certain things that are going on. It's a lonely job. I was telling somebody that today, man. When you know what you know, when you have knowledge, when you've researched things for years, when you've tried to attain a high level of frequency or a high level of consciousness, you're the Lone Ranger, baby. In this world, it's scary. If anything is scary in this world, if there's anything to be in fear of, it's the idiocy of your fellow man and the idiocy of not being awake and being used as a tool to commit violence against other people or to label other people. Everything you see right now is totally diametrically opposed to any writings of Jesus or any thoughts of Jesus or any ascended master for that matter. Totally opposed, totally out of sync with, has no resemblance whatsoever at all. And you wonder why we're in deep shit trouble, why we're in a shit storm. Some people don't like cussing, I get it. But sometimes you have to use words that have meaning, that are, let's say, impregnated with a sense of emphasis, okay? And sometimes four-letter words can be very emphatic because it drives home a point of don't be so stupid. Wake up. So I think I've probably rambled on enough about this subject. Thought I'd get this video out there, and it's needed, man, but I'm not reaching a whole lot of people. But if you want to subscribe and you want to support this channel, the links will be below. spiritofcrazyhorse.com, donations, and I have books. I'm an award-winning author, so you can find those there too at spiritofcrazyhorse.com. In the show notes below. Patreon I'm on too. I'm not monetized on YouTube because I'm such a bad boy. I'll leave it there today. Adios, and until I see you next time, happy trails to you.